Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. And let's take a look at these heads. I'm going to talk to you guys about head porting a little bit, and a couple things about heads that you might want to know as well. So if you're building a smaller engine, so I'd say where the threshold kind of turns off is about a 1904. If you're going to go 1914, maybe, you know, it's in that same category too, but I don't build those because I don't like 94 openings unless you're doing a bubble top case, and then I'm just not going to bother with going to a 1914. It's going to be much larger than that at that point. So here's the types of things that you need to look at. A couple things with your heads. On your smaller engine, if your cutoff area is 1904, and what reason I say that is because if you go larger than that, what happens is your CCs of your combustion chamber are probably going to need to be bigger, or you're going to have a giant shim in there, and you're going to have a lot of barrel fire, which means that you're going to have to get a low enough compression ratio for the street, you're going to have kind of a pretty good size deck height on your pistons. So you're going to have, like 80 thousandths, 70 thousandths, 80, 90. 70 thousandths is a kind of borderline, but 90 thousandths deck height. And, and it's just not a very good way to build your engine. You want your fire to happen in the head. So one of the things that we do to make that happen without going into the crazy amounts of compression ratio. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. It's just that if you do that, if you go to a higher compression ratio, it's not going to be like a daily driver street type engine. You're going to be going into high compression. 9-to-1 is kind of the cutoff. That's pretty high for the street. You go to like 9.5 or 10, and you're going to have a borderline running hot all the time engine. You can't do that in a bus, really. You can do it in a bug, maybe, but you got to be constantly watching head temp if you're doing that, so in detonation. So anyway, so if you start getting those categories, it's because your combustion chamber is usually too small. So doing stock heads, so this basically is good for a stock engine or 1600 up to like 1904, something like that. So for doing head porting. And the larger engines, larger heads with the bigger combustion chambers have a little bit larger ports in them. You can definitely do some improvements to those. The AA performance heads come ready for, just basically port me, please. So if you want to do that to them, that's a great idea too. Better flow through your head is going to give you more performance. And I'd say between a minimum of 5 horsepower to 8 at minimum, okay, in there, you can pick up by just doing this. So a lot of people think you have to go and have the heads done at a shop where they have a flow bench, and preferably that's good. If you have a flow bench, you're going to do a better job. What the flow bench is going to tell you is it's going to tell you that you did it evenly. It's not necessary really for the street guy just to play around with it. You can still pick up that 5 to 8 horsepower without going there. And I've done it many times. So believe me, I know it's a lot more. It's a noticeable amount. When I did my old 1835 years ago, and I did the heads, it was a huge improvement with a 2-barrel. So, and I imagine with dual carbs and stuff like that, even more flow, it definitely would be more horsepower than that. So like the 5 to 8 horsepower is kind of I'm going to say like a benchmark. As you add more, if you have a bigger engine, or you have more camshaft, or you have more carburation on it, it could be more than that by just doing the stuff that I'm going to show you in this video. So I'm going to get a lot of flack for the way I'm doing it, but that's okay. I've done this, so I know what it does. And that's fine. Somebody wants to get out the old comment section, get their typewriter going, go for it. So here's basically what you got to look out for if this thing would get focused in. If you look inside your head, there's a little bump right here, right there. Okay, and what that is, if you turn it this way, that is the spring seat. So this part right here, that's the spring seat. Okay, and if you take too much off of that little feller right there, if you take it out till that thing's gone, that little bump, you're probably going to have a crack, especially with high rev springs or dual springs right here where that goes. So when you port them, you're going to want to leave that guy there. Okay, let me get it back here. You want to leave this little thing right here, there. All right. Free game is right here. You can do something called deporting on your intakes. So you can take them way over there. You can open up this part a little, and you can open it up around here. And then if you just think about air as it goes in, you're going to want it to flow evenly. So if you leave this thing here and you kind of taper into it, it's going to flow through there better. And that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at. And then a lot of this stuff, you guys, I do by eye. So I'll eye out the ports. I'm trying to make them as even as I can see with my eye. And I'll open up this area. I'll open up all of this a little bit. Okay. Then I want to go inside with the valves out. Take the valves out. On the intake side, you can see, like right here, there's a pretty steep turn. I'm going to try and knock that down a little bit, but leave some of this where the valve seat sits. You need to leave at least a 1/16 right there. And then, so I'm going to try and get it to flow a little bit better around here so that there's that heavy edge going around that corner is going to slow the air down. So the goal is I do less inside here. Okay, very little I actually do inside here. Most of what I do is out here on the intake side. And the goal is the old Venturi effect. Larger at the top. Let me draw a picture for you. So basically, let's see if this paint marker works. This is a Venturi, right? You guys know what a Venturi looks like. And what this does is it helps the air velocity go faster. If you have a larger area here and you bring it into a smaller area like this and it flows well, you're actually going to speed the air up that's going here. It's going to be going faster, okay? And then this air is going to be going slower. And so that when the valve actually opens, the air is going faster, so more air gets in there, right? And the other thing that we need to do is when we get more air in there and it explodes and it comes back out the exhaust side, we want to get the air to flow out the exhaust as quickly as possible. So we need to look at the exhaust port and figure out what the obstructions are there. And if you look at it, at the exhaust, you can see the guide boss right there. It's kind of a lumpy little feller. And what we want to do is kind of smooth that guy out a little bit. We're going to smooth that out. Let's get our pointer. We're going to smooth this guy out a little bit. Kind of taper the edge of it a little bit. And make it so it kind of flows around the exhaust guide boss. And then if you look right here, if you put your finger in there, you'll feel a really sharp edge. These heads are a little bit better than some of them. These are the Brazilian casted ones. The old German ones were really had a heavy corner right here. And I'll just smooth that out a little bit right there. And then, if you can see, the exhaust will be coming out this direction, right? It'll be coming out this way. So I want to open up a lot of this side right here, more right here than I do over here. And that's going to get it to flow out more directly. So we're going to open it, but I can open up here and open up, but I'll open up just a little bit more on this side than on this side. Okay. And try and do it as even as possible. If you want to, you can get a caliper out and measure and try and do it that way if you want. I don't usually. I just eyeball it. And doing it that way seems to work pretty good for me. The tools you'll need to do the job, and I'm not going to film all of it. It's just tedious and slow, really hard to get a camera angle in here, but I'll show you progress as I go. Is one of these carbide tipped things and a die grinder. And since you're doing aluminum, here's a little set that I've got from Amazon. These things would come way down in price. I think I spent, in the 80s, I spent 40 bucks on this thing. This is an expensive one. And it hasn't dulled yet, of course. Maybe it is dull. Doesn't feel as sharp as it used to be. But these little sets here are really cheap on Amazon. They don't have anything as large as this one, which may or may not be a big deal. But this little set's kind of neat. If I were going to go back in time, I would buy this set over this, and it was probably cheaper for this whole set than just this. And they're all carbide tipped, and some of these little ones are real handy to get into those little corners to try and smooth out some things. So you can use your imagination there. Another common sense item, I would hope you would know to use these, of course. And this WD-40, some sort of lubricant. What you'll find is you're using this carbide tip or any of the ones you can get with them at Harbor Freight. I think has some now. You'll find it getting clogged up a lot. So with aluminum, it'll clog up a lot. So all you do to get it unclogged is spray some WD-40 on it, and all the little chips fall out of it, and then you can keep going. So that's the method. Use this guy, hog it out, spray it with some WD-40 every once in a while so that the thing stays sharp, and eyeball it the way I would think the air would want to flow. I just look at it and go, okay, air is not gonna want to go around that. So let me try and take some of the edge off. We're not gonna do like a stage 2 or something porting. This is like a basic porting job, and I'm gonna tell you, it works. It works. I've done this, gotten a big increase. It's my 1904 is done this way. Did it years ago, and the heads I did on that, and like I said, it was on an 1835 back in the day, and I picked up at least, I didn't dyno it, but it was at least 8 horsepower on that thing, because it was a huge difference just doing the heads. So anyway, same cam, everything else was the same. All I did was do the heads, and I picked up just way more top end and a lot more. It was mid-range to top end, so more flow at high speed. You'll still have torque, and the goal of this one is, this is going to have a stock carburetor on it, so we're not, it is going down the freeway, getting that airflow going through the engine, really helpful to keep the engine running better and cooler. So it does help there as well. So you might say, well, I don't really need the top end, but if you just do some stuff to heads, the airflow going through those heads is going to help cool the engine as well. So getting better flow is better for a lot of things on an air-cooled engine. So anyway, let's get started and I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. All right, here's kind of what I ended up with on this port. So let me see if I can show you what I did, because people are going to be, oh, you cut off all that little bump there. I didn't really. Here's what I did. If you can kind of look, I can actually take a little bit more off right there if I want to, just to square that, you know, make it more. Is I took some off right here, okay, and then took just a little bit off the top of that. But you can do that, a little bit of that, but what that does is it kind of helps the air flow over that better. If you can just kind of give you an idea. And then down in here, I'll probably, if I can get in there, I'll cut a little bit off of that. I mean, a lot of these guys that do the heads, they pull the, I mean, if you really want to go crazy, they pull the valve guides out and grind everything down and then put the guides in. Yeah, for the street, I don't want to need to do all that. Put new guides in and then grind everything. They'll just grind it all first. They'll grind it all down first, because then you got more access. We're not going to go there. So then what I'll do is now I'll take this gasket, put it on here. So if you can see, and now I'll cut this gasket. So right here I've already lined up. Look how much I took off of right here. If you can see, that's quite a bit I took off there, okay, around in here. And that's to help the air go around those bumps, okay? So it kind of helps it get around those things. And then I'm going to grind off this end, and then I'll grind the gasket. Then what I'll do is I'll take this old gasket, this is just an old gasket, and I'll use that to match up the other side and the intake ports. So I'll take this off and I'll put it on the intake ports, and I'll do the input and intake ports to match. So that's how you match it, is by using a gasket. So not rocket science, guys. It's not hard. You'd be surprised how much horsepower just that little bit of port work will do. Let's look at the exhaust. All right, let's see here. This is the exhaust side. So I just smoothed off that little corner. Now I can get my finger through there a lot easier. And I'll do that by feel, a lot of that. So I'll go to the other side, make sure it feels the same. And the exhaust, it's not as, I don't know, just as long as the exhaust comes out of the engine, it's not as critical. The port sizes are exactly the same on the exhaust, in my opinion, but these guys are going to say different things, but that's just what I think and what I found. You know, like I said, I'm not a racer. I'm not trying to win races. This is just street stuff to have a little more fun, make a little more horsepower out of, cost you nothing. You know, what does a little set like that cost? And one of these. And then if you don't even have that, I've done it before, you know, years ago when I had a drill. You know, I just did it with a drill. Took a while, but yeah, you can do it with that. And you'll just need more WD-40, because you see how it gets clogged up on there. I just keep lubricating it with WD-40, and that kind of helps that stuff fly out of there. And all of a sudden you'll notice it'll start cutting way better. So anyway. All right, so I'll finish out one port, and then I'll match the other ones as close as I can to that. So I'm just going to do a little bit more, probably not do much more to this. Exhaust side I think is pretty good. I don't know if you can see what I did inside here isn't very much on this head. It depends on the head. I only took off a little bit around the guide. Now, the other thing you got to watch out, you don't want to tear this up. You got to watch your tool, you know, this portion of the tool. So some guys will use a really long one, okay, and you can get in better angles and all that. I don't have one, so I'm not going to go there either. So like I said, it's a mild port job. We're just going to clean them up a little bit. I do this to almost all my engines because it doesn't take long to do, and it gets you a lot more horsepower, you know, a lot more. It's a bang for your buck. $0 horsepower. Gotta love it. A little easy thing you can do is I just take the gasket, shape the one, right? And then flip it over so that it's the same direction. And just give it a little paint. Then you kind of got the shape there, right? A little easier to see it. And you just cut around there. Again, I usually do it most of the time by eye, but I'm just showing you guys a couple different things. I think I did this when first time I ever poured anything. I used paint. Just like I said, I just get it as close as I can. I'm not trying to get it perfect. It doesn't really make that much difference if you just do the same shape to each one. The trick is when you get to the other side, you don't really know exactly what you did. Well, after a while, you kind of know what you did because you've done it a few times. So, I'm just going to go ahead and make that shape, grind that out of there, keep going. Well, let's take a look here. I mean, you can see they're not exactly the same. If you want to sit there and play with it and get it all really nice and even, you could even take this corner all the way up to even less of a round than that. You could take it almost to a full D, and here the same. And then you could cut these almost wafer thin and go that direction if you want. Depends on what you want to do. Sometimes I'll take this and almost make it a point and then just cut the gasket out. You can do that too. Just depends on what you want to do. But just doing this alone makes a huge difference. Let's look at the other head. Then I got to cut the other one exactly as close as I can. Doesn't need to be perfect. Like I said, the more perfect it is, the better, because then you have more even flow to all your cylinders and and all that. But you look at that, and look at that. It's a lot. It tapers in more. And then what I'll do is I'll open up the intake manifold to match it by using the gasket. And I might even cut a new gasket because that one's kind of butchery. Anyway, just do that. It makes a big difference. A lot more horsepower just from simple things like that. The exhaust doesn't look like it did that much to it, but I did. Opened up this port. Looks like the original one. So it's opened up about, say, about 2 millimeters or something like that. That's it. That's all it takes. And then shave down the edge of around the boss there a little bit, and then just cut the corner. Like these ones here, so that now I can really get a whole, like I couldn't get my whole finger. Let's take this one here so you can see. Like I can't, let's see. I get my finger in about that far. Now I can go a little bit further. It's not that much different on these heads. On some heads, you'll see right here, there's a huge mountain right on the inside of there. And taking that off makes a big difference. But on these Brazilians, for some reason, they're not. I think they have a little bit bigger combustion chamber too. I'm hoping they do. And, the guys that are saving, a lot of times, you got to look at the head. A lot of these heads have been decked a couple times, and unless you're running them on a buggy or something like that, you're not going to want the compression they have. So before you go and spend money on having them opened up, either look at them really close to see how far down they are from the top to down here, measure them up with a couple other heads, or CC them and make sure they're not like 46 or 48 cc. If they are, then you don't want to do those heads. You don't, not on the street, unless you're going to go real high compression. You don't care. You're just going to go. You don't care if it runs hot. Then But if you're going to try and put them in a bus, not a good idea. Probably not going to be happy. That's why so many people won't even use an old set of heads, because they have a couple different ones. Like they got the ones from Autolinea. It says they're 57 cc and they're step cut. I don't know about that, but it says they're 57 cc. AA performance, the big valve heads are 60, and you can get 57, I think, or 50. I can't remember the number for CB. CB's has the Panchitos, and I think they come 60 or 57. But you got to pay extra, I think, to get them to fly cut them out to 60. So I think that's what I've read. I don't know. I've never bought them. Maybe if you bought them before, comment below that says that, yeah, they're inclusive for that price, because for the price they want, plus then you pay an extra or whatever, you pay all the extra stuff. They get pretty expensive, where the AAs are already 60. And the only thing that's better about the Panchitos is they aluminum quality, and they're already deported. They're already factory deported. They're kind of like this already. And the AAs, if you just have the ingenuity, you could do this right here and have a really nice increase in power. Just do that. Just stay off of this thing right here where that spring sits, the spring seat. I didn't do much of that at all. Just a little bit. I just cleaned it up a little bit. And it looks like I did a lot to it. But I took more off up here and then tapered it in. And then just took a little bit off the top of it, and that's it. That's about all you can really do. You don't want to take much off. I mean, somebody might say, oh yeah, you can do more than that, but I don't. So anyway, that's how I do it. Anyway, I think I'll just finish the rest of it off camera and do both heads, and we'll continue on with the build. You can see these heads, how they perform later on. I'll talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding from the words I spit. So sharp, so freezing, so cold. Behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts peeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling.